Well, everyone that's here, most of the people that are here with us are students in our program. Thank you so much for being here. This is our get together that we do on a semesterly basis. Carrie Fee, Dr. Carrie Fee and I are our co-host. And we call it Success Stories from Art Students to Art Careers. So our guests today, our speakers today are Sarah Painter and Tracy Toler-Phillips. Am I saying your name correctly, Tracy? Yeah, okay, thank you, Tracy. And we'll see, we're missing one of our speakers. We're missing Robert Blake, and we'll see if he'll be joining in maybe later or in a few minutes, we'll see. But we have two wonderful people here, so if Robert can't be with us, that's fine. We have plenty to talk about today, and we honestly, every time we do this, we always have more questions for you all than we can get to in the time that we have. So we have plenty that we can talk about. So thanks for being here today. Thank you, Carrie. And thank you for all the students and participants that are here in Zoom. I just want to let people know that the chat is open, and the way that we format these talks is we do a quick introduction for our speakers, and I'll show you some images of their work, which is really exciting. And then we will go into the questions that students have prepared in advance. And then after that, toward the end of our time, then we'll have an open Q&A. So anybody that's here with us today, if something comes to your mind and you want to ask a question of our panelists, then please put that in the chat, and we'll be monitoring the chat. And then at the end, we'll ask those questions. Okay. So that's our format for today. And I just wanted to say too that the panel discussion that we do is designed around students' interests and their questions. So they come up with these topics and they ask the questions. And it's a part of our, and I think Carrie and I, we've worked this out together as a teaching and learning practice, because we believe that positive change and innovation, we can't be entrepreneurs unless we ask really good questions of ourselves and of our community. So that's why we center it around these questions that students ask. So with that in mind, why don't we get started? I'm going to do quick bios for both Sarah and Tracy. And like I said, I'll show you some work. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. See here. And I will skip ahead since I had Robert here first. Okay, and thumbs up if you can see the screen okay? Okay, great. So Sarah Painter is our first panelist. Sarah is a graduate of the BA Studio Art program. She currently serves as public art manager for the Council on Culture and Arts, and is also pursuing an MS in art education at FSU, focusing on social reconstructionist curriculum. Sarah has worked in the arts for the past decade as a practicing artist, curator, educator, and arts administrator, with a focus on community building. She has worked with municipalities, businesses, schools, and nonprofits to produce public artworks across the US and internationally. As a painter, Sarah's style constantly evolves as she creates site-specific work in social consideration of the setting and community. Her studio practice falls somewhere between abstract realism and contemporary surrealism, touching on more personal themes of feminism and identity as a woman. So thank you, Sarah, for being here. And our next panelist is Tracy Toler-Phillips. Tracy is a highly skilled photographer, retoucher, and photography art director based in New York City, with a career spanning over 30 years in the photographic market. Tracy's expertise lies in photography, photo production, art direction, and retouching for brands, celebrities, and photographers worldwide. Her work has been published internationally, and her clientele includes well-known fashion brands such as Madewell, Kate Spade, and Taylor Loft, plus global editions of Elle magazine and more. She is currently in the role of editorial photo retouching manager at J. Crew Group. Originally from South Florida, she holds a BS in studio art from Florida State University and an AAS in photography from the Fashion Institute of Technology, New York. She currently lives in the suburbs of New York over the bridge in New Jersey. So thank you, Tracy. Thank you both for being here. All right, I'm going to get out of this now. And so I thought that we would start just by a quick introduction with both of you. Of course, I just read your bio, but if we could hear a little bit more about you all, just to get us started, maybe a little bit of your story about how you came from FSU, what was your time like when you were at FSU, what did you study, and maybe a little bit about how that evolved into where you are now. If we can have a little bit of an introduction there. Whoever would like to start us off. Tracy, would you like to jump in? Yeah. Are you able to unmute? Oh, no. Okay, hold on.
Okay, now I can.
Great.
Hi, I went to FSU back in the day in the 90s and studio art major. And I grew up in Fort Lauderdale. I wanted to go to art school when I was younger, and I didn't know I wanted to be a photographer or work in the photography industry. I wanted to do illustration, and I ended up choosing from a bunch of different schools, but something about FSU just made me feel comfortable, and I really liked the campus, and I really thought the art program looked like it had a lot of versatile classes I could take. So I ended up going there, and I really enjoyed all the different types of art history I was taught and all the different mediums of art that I was exposed to. So, I started off doing illustration, and then I took a photography class because it was required. And then a light bulb went off. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is what I really want to do. So I started really heavily leaning into photography, probably from my middle of my sophomore year until I graduated. So that's how I ended up there.
And then go from that time that you were at FSU, what it's always interesting when you talk to people and their careers look like, and a lot of times when we talk to students, it's always that time between when you just got your diploma in your hand to the time where you are now, that time period in between is always the really interesting part, especially like what happened like maybe the first year or so after graduation.
So I knew that I wanted to learn more about photography, and I said, I knew that New York had what I wanted with a photography career. So I looked at New York schools to continue my education. And 2 weeks after I graduated from FSU, I was at FIT. Like, I was ready and I was charged up and ready to go. And so I moved into an apartment near FIT, and I started studying commercial photography there. So they taught us about all types of lighting, and this was pre-digital, so we were still in the dark room, and I had all this dark room background because I had been at FSU. So it was interesting. We learned how to shoot still life and fashion. And from there, we had lots of professors that were in the industry. So they have many, many internships and connections with major photographers that shoot all over the world, from every genre you can think of, fashion. They do war photography, they do wildlife photography, they know everybody. And so they do extend these opportunities to the students. And from there, I got internships with some major photographers. And then I kind of slowly built my way up as a photo assistant. And then I decided to go corporate and work in the photography department of Ralph Lauren. And then I went off for a little while and started doing my own business where I was shooting corporate events and trying to do my own photography for social media, because this is when social media first started to happen. And then I got recruited to go back to corporate. And then I ended up at Kate Spade and then a lot of other freelancing at a lot of other companies. And then J. Crew came along about 12 years ago and said, hey, come over here and do retouching. And then I just haven't left, but I still do my freelance work and my photography. Yeah, and that's mainly in retouching that I've been getting that. I went from photography and kind of morphed over to retouching. And I think that's having a photography eye and understanding photography really puts you ahead when you're doing this type of digital work. And also just understanding light and shadow. And all the years I did illustration and drawing and having a fine art background, I think that really helped put me at the top of photo retouchers and as a photography person and photographer who lights. So I really learned lighting with my fine art background, which most people in the industry do not have. In the commercial photography world, they do not have it. So it sets you apart.
Yeah, that's great to hear. That's great to hear that all of those different experiences helped you. Yeah,
Yes.
that's great. Sarah, how about you? Tell us a little bit more about your story. Oh, wait, hold on. I have these security settings on here and it's just a little extra step. Let's see. There we go.
All right, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Well, I went to Florida State and studied my studio art degree, and my concentration was in painting and figure. I graduated in 2019, and I'm still in Tallahassee now. So my time at Florida State was really interesting because I was very much career focused while I was in my classes, which was a double-edged sword. I think I had a really smooth transition coming out of the program because I had commissions and work and a little more professional development experience. But it did take me a little bit longer to get my degree. So I just wanted to dive right into it. I opened my LLC in 2016, and I still work through that, where I do mostly mural making and community-based projects. Since graduating, I've also been an art teacher at Maclay High School. I've currently work on the Council on Culture and Arts as the public art manager. So there I'm more facilitating public art projects. So it's not me painting, but working with artists to show their work in public spaces, which I was really inspired by because it's very much in line with my personal art practice, which is mural making because of the public aspect of it. I like art in public places. I like the audience that is there. And that ties very much in with community building and empowerment through the arts and art for social change. So I've always wanted my artwork to be a message to the world. So naturally, I found myself in the public art world and mural making.
Very interesting, very interesting. And we're gonna ask you more about that for sure. So I think some of what you're saying is kind of into my next question, but I think why don't we skip down to our second question? I think that you've covered my first question here. I love this question. I'm not sure which student asked this, but I love this question. It might be tricky to answer. We'll see. They asked about where your inspiration comes from. Is there a specific moment or maybe one time that it started to make you think about what your passion was that really had your passion kind of take off? Especially for creating things that are meaningful and powerful. And I know both of you, your work is very strong, and there's a lot of forethought that is happening in both of your careers. So can you address that? What inspires you, and is there anything in particular in your time that kind of made it take off for you?
You want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. So I guess I've always I loved illustration, but it was illustrating the fantastical, like fantasy type things that I wanted to do. And when I got photography, I thought this is a faster way to get the image that I want. And then I started, as I went along in the field and started directing shoots and actually producing shoots, we would come up with a concept, we would storyboard it, we would prop style it, we would have a whole team behind it. And I thought working with a team to come together for a vision is what really was my inspiration. Instead of it just being me, I like to work in teams. So that's why I ended up going in more commercial direction and photography direction. And I really like when a lot of people come together to bring a concept to fruition. So I think that's what is my inspiration, is like working with really talented artists and us coming together and coming up with a concept. Hey, you are going to, pull these clothes that are going to do this feeling, and you're going to pick this location, and you're going to do the makeup this way. And, the Photoshop person is going to do this way. So, and even in my day job where I work, they do that as well. Like they have teams, we're all on teams. So I really like working with talented people coming together to make a vision. So that's my inspiration kind of behind my artwork. I mean, I do like to do stuff myself too, but I'm really team focused.
Mm-hmm. There was a question that is coming up later, so maybe we'll come back to your teamwork.
Okay.
It's going to tie into another question later, so this is great. So Sarah, how about you? Any particular moments or?
I mean, it's not a particular moment that I can think of, but when I think about my art practice and what led me here, zooming out outside of art, I think about my life and what I want to do with it. And I want to do good things for the world and maybe make the world a better place. And I know that's a very grandiose notion, but I think for anyone to do that, you utilize your strengths. And I feel I'm a very creative person. I'm very artistic. And I wanted to use my art to make the world a better place. So naturally, I go into mural making because you have a wide audience and you think about working in teams, like Tracy said, and having people come together for a common cause and have this visual monument that is left is really powerful. And so I think about the why of my art practice, and that's what led me here. But it wasn't a specific moment. I think it's really a series of intentions.
Very good. Very good. Well, I'm going to jump into the next question. This one's a little bit, it's a little different. What was the most challenging part of starting your career, or the step that you took that helped you the most? What do you think?
I mean, I can go first. I guess we can go that way.
Okay, let's do it.
Me then Sarah, or I guess.
Yes.
I would say the most challenging part for me was being in a very male-dominated profession and being a woman. I was in the photography world, and it still is not as bad as it was in like the 90s and 2000s. It was very male-dominated. Every photographer was a man, every retoucher was a man, every art director was a man. So it was very hard to get taken seriously. It was difficult to get work. You can't lift this heavy equipment. You can't, like a lot of comments, a lot of men sitting together, not including you in the conversation. So, and the photography industry doesn't have regulations so much. So things can happen on set. People can say things on set, and there's not an HR person there to like watch it. So I found it very hard to break in. But what I did was I thought, hey, it sets me apart to be a woman, but I also made a focus to work with female photographers and female artists as much as possible. Not that I don't love working with men, I do, but just in a male-dominated field. Now it's a little bit more even. It's still slightly skews male-dominated, but it's a little bit more of an even playing field now, but then it was not. So I'd say that was my hardest like struggle getting into the industry.
And what would you say if someone else were kind of struggling with this kind of, I mean, discrimination in the workplace? Would you give any advice to deal with that? How did you deal with it?
So now in New York, there are ways to report discrimination in the workplace that there weren't when I was doing, working on sets all the time. So you can easily like go online and make, a complaint. They have some, I wouldn't say photography unions, but they have social media groups with photographers and people in the creative industry that you can like alert, hey, this happened on set, and there's ways now to get the word out or report that there wasn't then. But if you work for a company, I would definitely go to HR and mention it. If you're not working for a company and you're freelancing, just look at the state you're in. I think Georgia might have laws now too, because they have the film industry there so strongly. So there might be labor places you can complain about labor discrimination online if you're a freelancer. So I think it's easier now to make those complaints.
Okay. Thank you. Sarah, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I can relate a lot to what Tracy was saying about being a woman in a male-dominated field, specifically when it comes to painting walls and large walls and using lifts and working large scale. You get undermined a lot, like a lot. And it really took a toll on my self-confidence and my self-esteem, even to the point of like, it's hard to ignore those comments. And I would say just having more confidence in yourself and just proving everyone wrong has been huge. Like I don't care what other people say or think now, but it really is wild, like how much you can be discriminated against. And I try not to like hone in on it too much because I want to stay positive and it's like not give it more energy or attention than it's worth. But it's almost laughable. Like I was recently working on a project and I'm climbing into my lift and someone stops their car, they're driving, and it's a man, and he says, "You don't know how to use that." I'm like, why would you say that? I was like, would you ever stop and tell a man you don't know how to use that? And I'm like, that is such a wild thing you just did. So just little things like that. It's not so much of, it's more nuanced in a way sometimes, but just not listening to people who put you down and really believing in your inner voice and yourself and trusting yourself. Because, if you're working in the arts, there's a reason for that and you have a gift and you need to believe in that. Outside of being a woman, just being an artist, people can, well, how are you going to make money? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? And if you have good intentions and you work hard, like things will work out. And you have to trust in yourself for that. And just really be present and adaptive. And that's what creatives do best. So I've always thought artists make great entrepreneurs because you have to be very creative and really be able to think on your feet and think outside the box. So.
Yes, absolutely. Very well adapted to this endeavor.
Well said.
So, and on that note, my next question is on a similar vein. So the next question was, there are always ups and downs when building a business. What would you consider to be the most challenging part of being an entrepreneur? Is there an eye-opening moment in which you have failed successfully when working on your business?
Failed successfully. I look at it as when I make a mistake, or somebody says, "Oh, you should have done this. It should have looked this way." Or I think about, is this true? And if it's coming from somebody I'm working with who's like an art director, a creative director, usually they're somewhat right. And because they have the experience, they're there, they see everything. And if I make the mistake, I just learn from it and I don't make it again. I make sure I will never do this again. And it's worked for me. I've been pretty good about not repeating the same mistakes. So, yeah, I think, I mean, I have many examples, but nothing specific except for just learn from it and then just try to harness it to not do it again. And just, you were that much wiser. You know, you've learned that lesson and you're ahead of the game now that you've learned that. So now you know what you didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Sarah, what do you think?
I agree 100%. I mean, I think business is very much like an art piece in the sense that to make a masterpiece, you have to make 100 bad pieces at least, right? So it takes 100,000 million bad pieces to make a masterpiece. And business is the same way. And you're not going to get to that masterpiece or to your success until you learn through your failures. And that is how you will learn, is by failing. So I don't even view my failures as failures. I'm like, no, that was just me getting one step closer. And I think it's important to reflect on them that way. You can either say, oh man, I suck and I messed this up. Or you can say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I know that now, right? How am I going to use this? I'm one step better. And it really is perspective based. So it's hard for me to even think of a specific failure because I don't view it that way. And if I would have, I wouldn't be able to be an artist and be practicing right now.
Right. Again, going back to what you were saying earlier about art making is failure on a daily basis, on a regular basis, right?
But you can't look at it that way. I would say it's learning on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You know, got to stay positive.
Yes. I mean it in the most positive way. Yes.
Like they
Absolutely.
say in yoga, you know, it's a practice. Every
It's a
day you just practice. Art is a practice.
The
Yes.
journey.
Yeah, sure, for sure. All right. Well, my next one's drilling down a little bit deeper into a more specific thing. And I'm working with students right now in entrepreneurship, and a lot of what we talk about and a lot of the questions that students have is about marketing. In fact, it's kind of taken over our class right now. So it's a huge part of being in business, right? And even as independent artists, if you're just doing freelance work or you're just making art, even if you're doing like a side business and it's just a small little practice, you have to think about your marketing, right? It's a really important part of the whole thing. So how do you go about marketing your work? How do you find people and how do they find you?
I have a lot to say on marketing. So I'll break it down to like photography and retouching. So with photography, get your stuff on social media, even if you are shy or don't feel like it, you just have to be on social media right now. I see all the photographers that they hire through my company or through other companies. A lot of them are scouted off of Instagram. I mean, daily I see photographers scouted off of there. And of course, having a really great, clean website that showcases your work and sectioning it off into places like portraits, social media shoots, or commercial, like sectioning off the different sections of your work. You got to make it easy for the client to understand. And, you know, I think the next part is, and this is for photography and retouching, and I also have a side business, which this applies to as well. I have a beauty company as well, but all this together, it's all about your network. You know, it's really important to, what's that saying? Your network is your net worth, you know? So, you have to put yourself out there and make connections, whether it's with your instructors. You talk to your instructors and you say, hey, can you get me this? Do you know of any good internships? Do you know of somebody who would need an assistant for this? Or whether you stay in touch with your people you went to school with, or that you worked with on a summer internship or something like that. Put it up on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn and just stay connected with people and reach out to everybody you know, and constantly put up your new work on your LinkedIn feed. It's all online right now. So it's great to be in shows. I have friends who are fine artists who are in shows and they do all these things, but they promote the heck out of it on social media. They go crazy. They're on TikTok and Instagram and, everything. So I think you just have to put yourself out there and not be afraid to do it, because if you don't do it, the next person's going to do it. So that's my marketing little spiel.
How about the other end of the spectrum? Is it the same? Is it kind of organic when you're putting your work out there, but how about you're seeking out your network, like reaching out to people? Do you have a similar strategy, or is it different?
I just email people, I DM people I know, and I'll be like, hey, this is happening, or I'm looking for this. Do you know of anything? How are you? Let's have coffee. What I do, I just go right there and message them, and they're usually like happy to talk. So, people want to help each other, especially in this industry, especially in the arts. So I would definitely just keep your network strong and build it. Don't be shy. Just talk, ask questions, think of everybody, and use your instructors as a resource. That's something I didn't know to do when I was in school. So.
Great. Thank you. Sarah, what do you think? Marketing?
Well, honestly, I'm very fortunate when it comes to murals because they naturally market themselves. They're large, they're in public spaces, that wide audience that ties into my art practice, ties into my business practice too. I don't think about marketing a whole lot. I'm going to be honest. I think the best marketing, honestly, is sharing what you've done, keep working, let your inspiration guide you, and let people know what you're doing, and be confident too. Just the fact that you created the time and space to create something is something to be proud of, and people want to see that, right? And the people who don't aren't the people you want to be following you anyways, right? So as you share your work, your network is naturally going to build itself out, and that really is powerful, not just in a business sense, but in the sense of staying inspired and building a community. Artists are kind of few and far. There's not a whole lot of us who do it professionally, and knowing other people who are doing creative careers can just be really helpful if you're in a creative block, and they can help you through it, or having friends and community doing what you do can be very helpful. Sorry, this was a marketing question. Social media is also very important. So I don't think of it as marketing, though. I think of it as sharing what I'm doing. And maybe that's just because of my personal art practice. Some people might be more curated or more intentional with how they want their aesthetic of their feed to look and things like that. That has never been super important to me, but it's never been super important for my art either. It's constantly changing with each piece that I make. It's very responsive to the setting and the site that it's in. So I just share what I do, and I try and be authentic with that too. I don't try and force it into like a brand, because that's when I lose my inspiration. I think having a brand and a look and aesthetic can be extremely helpful, but if that kills your creativity, is it worth it? I feel like having your inspiration guide you first and foremost is the most important thing. And then how do you share that with the world in an authentic and exciting sense? And you have to be very confident when you're doing it too, because there's a very exciting part of what you're doing. So you have to make sure that you're showing it in that light, because you got to be your own best cheerleader in a way, and people will follow suit.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So speaking about people, finding people, working with people, a lot of questions that students have about working with clients and developing relationships with clients. So they asked, what is your strategy when working with clients? How do you navigate creative control and the balance between what the client wants and what feeds your artistic voice? How do you make that balance?
Wow. Depends on what you're doing. When I'm working with clients for retouching, I freelance with a very high-end cosmetic brand and on the side, and they have a very specific vision. And I don't understand it aesthetically, but they want this like CGI kind of look. And I just have to, sometimes I show them a version of what I think would look good. And then I show them a version of what they want. And then I let them see what is available. And then they can choose a lot of time. And then in my day job at J. Crew, what I'll do is I'll have an art director say, hey, can we do X, Y, and Z with this image? And they're so vague about what the directions are. So I'll go, okay. So I'll change the lighting here, change the color here, do this, do that. And I'll go version A, B, C, or D. And I'll just like send it to them. And they go, oh, well, I like C. Okay, great. We'll go with C. And now apply that to the whole shoot. Okay. So I try to like give versions to people. I will be honest about clients. Some clients want what they want and they don't care about your artistic vision at all, especially in the commercial world. If you're selling products, if you're working on a product shoot, you're photographing products, you're retouching products, you know, you are painting products, because I know some painters who do things for Gucci and stuff. Like if you're doing that kind of thing, they want what they want, and they may want your input about like, well, that might not technically work very well, so here's a solution. But artistically, they don't always want to hear it. You know, art directors are very specific about their visions. And so I guess that's a commercial perspective on it. If you're being more artistic, like when I shoot editorial photography, when I would submit things to editors for like Elle or In Style or whatever we were submitting to, we would storyboard ideas and send them to the editors and be like, here is a storyboard, what we want to do, this kind of concept, this kind of clothing, this kind of hair makeup, this location. And then we'd give them a couple options and say, do any of these stories appeal to you? And they would say yes or no. Most of the time was no, but occasionally you would get that one yes, and that would be like, oh, great, we can proceed. And then, or they would come back to you and be like, I like this, but change this. So you would have to do a little balancing act to keep it yours, but also wear their input. So it depends. And nowadays, submitting things to publications is a little bit different. You can still submit. And a lot of publications do take photography submitted, but I would suggest, and some of them ask you to pay now. You have to pay a fee for like Elle Vietnam and stuff, like $2,000 to have your editorial published now. So there's a lot, the world is changing, but there are still a lot of publications that will take free, that will publish you. They may not pay you. Some will pay you. It just depends. But if you want it published, I say storyboard, send it out, see what they say, and then come back as a photographer. As when you're working with a team of like art directors and stuff, you know, you can give them options and see what they like. That's what I tend to do, unless they're very strict and they say, I only want this. So that's kind of a balance, what I do.
That's great. That's great. And actually, there's a little sidebar to this. I want to ask, when you touched on teams again. So a student had asked, how did you, so I think this is a great time to ask this about going back to your teams. How did you learn how to manage teams? Where did that kind of come into play? And they asked, as a team leader, what do you look for in one of your team members? So maybe if you're selecting a team, I don't know if that's part of your practice and how you work.
Do you want Sarah to answer? You want me to answer?
Or? Oh, you, Tracy.
Okay.
Then we'll jump in with Sarah.
Okay, all right. How did I learn to lead teams? Well, if you're a photographer, you have to lead the team. You just have to. You're the director. So same with a film, someone who does film, you know, who's a DP, a director of photography for motion. You have to lead the team visually. So in a commercial world, if it's paid, if it's for a corporation or a large client, they will have a photo producer or a film producer that will actually do all the production work, where they will get the team organized. They'll make sure everyone's there at the same time. They'll do that legwork. when it's a smaller shoot and it's your concept, you're submitting to, a publication, online publication, or printed or whatever it is, then you're kind of leading the show. So you're doing the production, you're telling everybody this is what's going on. But when I do that, when I work on these smaller projects, I tend to ask the team for their input about the concept. So then I will listen to everyone's ideas, come up with the concept based on everyone's ideas, and then I'll storyboard, send it to them, let everyone look at the storyboard. Let's see if they like it, if they have any comments, and then we'll submit. So when we do, when it's commercial work and you're like say I'm doing something at J. Crew, we have a photo production team and they'll do everything. The art director shows up and they run the show with the photographer. So they're kind of the photographer saying, hey, move this way, turn that way. Hey, fix that light. And the art director's like, hey, I want a little more fun. I want you to, I want you two to interact a little bit more, lean on him, lean on her, that. So you'll have a little bit of both in a commercial environment with big clients. But if you're on your own doing your own thing, then you have to kind of take the lead and work with the team. And then you have to concept from that. So that's how I have done it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So Sarah, getting back to the original question, working with clients, how do you navigate creative control? What do you think?
So when I first meet with a client, I ask them to tell me, what do you want? And sometimes they're very specific. I want my logo painted. Their logo is designed. I'm not a logo designer, I'm a painter. Say, okay, I can do that. In that case, there's no creative freedom. I might have suggestions on size or whatever, but really it's more so that they're hiring me for a trade of, how to use this tool, not my vision. That's fine. I don't mind it. And then there's like the opposite end where you meet with the client. They say, I want whatever. You just tell me, which is dangerous because a lot of times they do have an idea of what they want, or maybe they know what they don't want. So you got to start weeding that out. It's like, well, tell me about this, or tell me why you want it. That's a very important question too, when you're kind of in the middle, right? They say, well, I want something kind of like this, or I want angel wings painted. That's my idea. And I'm like, okay, why do you want these very generic, overplayed angel wings? I don't say it like that, but and but I say, why do you want them? They say, well, I want this to be a gathering point. I want people to come here, or I want people to engage with the art, or I want, and you get to the why, and then you explain like, okay, well, we could do that, like Tracy was saying, or what if we met that why and answered that in X, Y, or Z? And then a light bulb goes off. Oh, okay. So it's like, you have to kind of humor what they want sometimes, because sometimes they really are like dead set, like, I want these angel wings. And then you have to like show them the world, like this, here are some other potential ways in which you can satisfy that. And it's kind of a dance, it's a creative process in itself. I always say painting is the easy part and clients are the hard part. So developing a relationship with your client is very important, and really listening is super important. And a lot of times that creative freedom comes as you know the client better. Like specifically, there was a client I had here in town. He had a large building and he leased it out, and he wanted murals all wrapping around it. So we give a proposal, and over the course of a year, we're painting on and off. The first one was very specific. Said, I want this, I want these elements. And we had the creative freedom to kind of like combine them and do some color scheming and whatnot. But it was pretty specific. And then as we worked our way around the building, he gave us more and more creative freedom. To the time we were at the last wall, he said, paint whatever you want. I don't even need to see a sketch. So that was really neat. So a lot of times that creative freedom comes with trust, as you develop that relationship with your client.
I love it. So a sidebar for you, Sarah, that kind of jumps off in that same place. Thinking about community building, since you work with a lot of different pieces and parts of the community, what is it about community building that you find most exciting and maybe most frustrating?
So when you think about community, you're not looking at individuals, right? You're looking at a group of people. So within a group of people is a bunch of individuals with individual ideas on the way things should be painted. So community projects that are community or engage the community, you can end up in a situation where you get a lot of people who are really passionately involved, and that's great. That is really that is really good, because a lot of times these voices haven't been heard elsewhere, right? And this is their opportunity to have a say in what's happening in their neighborhoods and whatnot. So that is fantastic. But sometimes, you know, there has to be a point where you as the artist you have to synthesize all these different voices and synthesize these overarching needs of the community. And with public art, with this wide audience, you're not going to please everybody. And if you did, then I don't think you did your job as an artist. You know, I'm not saying you need to upset a whole community. That's not necessarily productive either, because your wall will get painted over. So, you know, was that really worth it? Whereas if you can push the boundary just enough, and then you can have your walls stay up. But yeah, I think it's okay to disrupt a little bit through your work. I want my work to disrupt just a little bit. I don't want to just upset people. That's not productive, but I want people to think. I want to challenge people's thoughts and ideas. And, you know, so there's like community driven murals in the sense of me engaging with the community, but at the end of the day, I have pure artistic freedom. There's that, you know, or there's community engaged projects where the community is very much involved with the design development. And you go through a series of meetings. There's all these different ways to kind of conduct community engaged projects. But those ones are especially challenging because it's just a lot of listening, right? And you make difficult design decisions, and it's just a mural, right? But my heart goes into this, and these people's hearts go into it, and it really does make a statement on the identity of the space that it's in, and you know what that community's values are, and helping shape the future and reflecting on the past. And there's a lot of power in that. So it's hard to please everyone, right? And you have to once again have that confidence to say, okay, I'm using my moral compass and my best judgment to do what I think is right by this community.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was wonderful, Sarah.
Thank you.
So I think what we'll do, those are our general questions. I think what we can do now is go into the ones that students wrote specifically for either Tracy or for Sarah. So we won't bounce back and forth with the specific questions. So I'll just direct the questions to each of you. And just as a reminder for those of you that are in our room together, our participants, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and then we'll have time at the end. We'll reserve a little bit of time for your questions. So please go ahead and put anything in there that you have a question for us. Let us know. So Tracy, let's see, what do we have for you? First question on my list is, how did you get started in editorial photography? I think they were specifically wanting to know about the editorial part. Like, what sets this art form of editorial photography apart from other types of photography? I thought that was an interesting question.
Yeah, there are so many types of photography. There's photojournalism, there's wildlife, there's many different things, portraiture. I would say that editorial photography is, I got pulled into it because I just loved creating these worlds and these concepts. And I wanted to work, as I said before, with a team. And when you're a wildlife photographer, you're sitting out in the bush. I know a few wildlife photographers here in New York, and they sit out in the bush for weeks, and it's a thing, you're all by yourself, or you're with like maybe a scout. And that was just not, I'm a big animal lover, but that was not the life for me. But I wanted to work, I had this ideal of what, the things I wanted to illustrate, but now I wanted to bring them to the photography world. So that's kind of how I got into the editorial world, and specifically fashion. So I've shot other things other than fashion, but I've done some photojournalistic work. It's not on my site. I do enjoy it, but it is once again a single person type of thing. You're sitting there waiting with a camera and just waiting for it to happen. And then, oh, I got it, and I've worked with some major photojournalists back when I first got out of school. I worked for Magnum Photos, and they like Steve McCurry and, major photojournalists. These are like lone wolf types. So, it depends on what kind of life you want as well and what speaks to you. Some people like to work alone. That's their thing, and to me, it's more team based and working with a group of artists together. So
it sounds like you have experimented with a lot of different types of photography, and do you feel like you found your home now? Like this is what you do, or are there
I
other
feel
parts
like
of photography that you haven't ventured
I would
into?
say that I'm now at this stage of my life, I'm starting to have different photography interests other than fashion. I'm starting to think about other things. I want to do some like fine art series with extreme macro that I have in mind. So that has nothing to do with fashion, but it has to do with pattern. So, no, I wouldn't say, I found my home for now, but I'm always evolving, always changing.
That's awesome. I love that. And let's see. So Sarah, I got a question for you. We've been talking about your mural work, but I'm wondering, a lot of students are interested in creating murals, and your murals are all over Tallahassee. So we can just point to them and say, look, Sarah Painter did that. So you're really inspirational to our students here, but I wonder if you have any thoughts about how you got started with creating murals, and if you had advice for, let's say, a student that was thinking about maybe trying this and seeing what it was like, if you had any advice for them.
Well, there's no handbook on how to become a muralist. You have to develop a portfolio for people to be willing to pay you to paint a mural. And to develop that so it's kind of like, well, how do I get to paint a mural if I can't build out that portfolio of murals? You can paint large scale. You can ask to paint a mural for free, and I would do that one time. My first mural I painted, I had a relationship with the business owner. So I did live painting at this, it was like a dive bar that y'all are probably too young to know, but that is now GDO, if y'all are familiar with that, maybe on the corner of Gaines and Railroad. But anyways, I did live painting there. So they had seen my work. They knew I was an artist and I was serious about it. And one day I was like, can I paint your wall? And they're like, sure, show me a sketch. So I did a sketch, which, in my mind, I didn't think of it this way, but I was building a proposal, right? And they're like, well, when are you going to do it? How long is this going to be? And you're naturally going through that process. And I'm like, I can do it during Gaines Street Fest. It'll be this big, whatever. And I worked it out. I had a gallon of white paint, and I bought a gallon of black paint, and I did a grayscale mural. And that was intentional. So you can build your designs originally with cost in mind, because supplies can get expensive as you go larger scale. And I worked it out, and I put my contact on the bottom of it. And then shortly after, I got contacted to paint a mural, and it just snowballed after that. I did that one wall for free. And then I actually did do one more where I said, look, I painted this one. Will you pay for my supplies? And then boom, I have my portfolio, right? And like I said, I'm very fortunate with murals in the sense that they advertise themselves. So once you do a couple, it's kind of niche. So people will reach out to you because you paint murals, not just because you paint, right? You're specializing in that now. Other advice I would consider, which I learned a lot of this through trial and error, but you don't have to do it that way, is thinking about your materials and thinking about longevity, is specifically when you get into bigger budget projects, like when you're really getting paid a living off of it. They're going to want to make sure that that is going to last, right? They're not just like paying you a little bit and it's like, whatever, this is temporary. They're like, no, I want this to last forever. So like, do your research. That information is out there. Sherwin-Williams has been very helpful. There's also some mural painting companies like Nova or Golden, which y'all probably know. Golden like studio paints, they make a mural line too, and it's really good. I've used it. Those are more expensive, but they last. The great thing about Nova and Golden is that their colors work like studio colors. So you can get your phthalo blue and your yellow ochre and your cadmium red, and like the light fastness of it. So you can do like a study small scale, and then you have your palette and it's going to translate the same way. Whereas Sherwin-Williams colors, they're like how translucent they are and how colors interact aren't going to be exactly the same. But Sherwin-Williams is going to be a lot cheaper than those. So it's a give and take. It's like, it's going to be harder to paint with Sherwin, but they last, like they have a lifetime warranty. But it's not just any paint. You have to think interior, exterior. Are you painting on metal? Are you painting on brick? How do you need to prep the wall? All of these different things are good things to consider and are going to be really reassuring for your client too, to be like, oh, okay, this person knows what they're talking about, right? Like I just dealt with a project where the paint was peeling. So I didn't just have to prep the wall, but I had to think, okay, now it's leaking internally. So now you're getting into like facade reconstruction. I don't necessarily do all that, but I know the people to hire who can, right? My partner is a muralist. He's very interested in wall prep and getting that all done. I don't care about that. So I hire people too, and I put that in my budget, right? So you become a project manager at a certain point. I'm going to hire this person to pressure wash my wall, this person to buff my wall, like prime it. I'm going to hire this person to assist me, this person to help seal it. When you get into really large scale projects, you have to become a project manager because you can't do every step of it by yourself. I mean, you could, but like you can hire someone to do it quicker, right? Like I'm not a very like tall person. So like I can't roll out a wall as fast as someone else could. So I'm going to hire them and they can do it for cheaper, right? Like it's not practical for me to do every step, but I'm still running the show, right? And you get into that collaborative aspect of it, and you build out a team, and that's really exciting too. So also, if anyone is interested in mural painting, I actually just put out a mural assistant interest form because I've had people reach out, and I work freelance. So it's an ebb and flow of, when I need people and how often, but to have a list of people and their contact information and their availability is super helpful for me. So I can drop that in the chat if y'all.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Cool.
Yes, please.
Because like I said, you can't do it alone. If you want to paint murals, you're going to work with a team. And that's exciting. That's a cool and good thing.
Yeah. What do you think about on that note? I mean, that's a great opportunity for students. And I'm sure, if somebody can pick up on that when you need people, that would be fantastic. But are there other opportunities for students to, try things out under the tutelage of another muralist?
So more so learning like how to paint a mural, or like the business side of it.
Shadowing, I guess, and just seeing the ins and outs of it.
Well, yes, it can be helpful. Sometimes, a lot of times my murals are very like time pressing. So I'm just like, I gotta work, you know what I mean? I feel like I'm on a mission when I'm out there painting a wall. But yes, specifically what I wanted to do, which maybe this is another conversation another time, but I really wanted to get students from like FSU or FAMU and do it on a semester basis, because the most challenging thing is going to be getting someone out there the first time to kind of shadow or help. But once I've like developed that rapport, it gets easier, and maybe they can get class credit for it or something. Right. And I can plan out projects at a semester at a time. I know I am freelance, but I could create, 4 months of these are the projects we're doing, and building out like a weekly schedule kind of.
Yeah. That's
been something that has been kind of challenging, but an exciting challenge for me from a business perspective is, how do I hire people? And I'm figuring it out as I go, and I just try and be really receptive. And I think about struggles that I had becoming a mural artist, and realizing it doesn't have to be that way for other people getting their foot in the door. You know what I mean? Like the trial and error, you can have someone teach you. So I would love to be able to do that for other people who want to get into it. Right. I just got to find a way to like formalize it,
We have to talk.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. All right. So next question. Let's see our time here. Okay. Let's see, for Tracy. Oh, I'm curious about this too. What made you decide to enter the beauty industry when you did? Was it a difficult or scary transition? So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your beauty brand.
Sure.
I haven't really talked about that.
Yeah. So it's kind of an offshoot of my photography, and I've been around hair makeup artists for like 25 years now. So I've always been fixing makeup in post-production. And I decided I just wanted to raise money for some wildlife and domestic animal charities. And I thought, how can I do that in a way where I'm not just saying, hey, sharing a post about an animal in need or something. I wanted to do it on a larger scale. So I created a product. So I decided to make lipsticks and nail polish that give a percentage to have 4 different wildlife and domestic animal charities that it goes to. So I entered the space around 2000. I would say I launched in 2018, and things went really fast, really quickly. I got into Nordstrom's in like a pop-in and like 9 stores in Canada and the United States. I ended up in the New York Times. I got tons of PR really fast. And I got that through my network, through the people I had already worked with or knew. And I had said, hey, here's something I'm doing. And then COVID hit, and then people start wearing masks and people stopped wearing lipstick. So for 2.5 years, it's been a bit of a struggle, but I'm starting to lean a little bit more into the nail polish now. And I'm finding the nail polish is doing quite well with sales. Everything, my whole idea, I called it a photographer created brand, but everything is eco-friendly as I can get it to be. Vegan, cruelty-free, low chemical. My nail polish has organic marula oil in it. And I made sure to get Italian glass bottles and aluminum tops, as little plastic as possible. So I'm trying to constantly make products without plastic. So that was a whole other concept for me to be creative, and having an artist background or commercial artist background, it definitely, like Sarah says, it does prepare you to be an entrepreneur. So I definitely had to use all my skills with teams or hiring people or getting freelancers to help me and such to create this brand. But I created it from concept. Like I did have the concept, but I did hire freelancers to help me create like the tubes, and I knew people who did package design. So I reached out to them. Can you help me? And I'll hire you to do this. So yeah, so right now it was scary. Things got really, things start to take off really well. Then, and now we went like this, and now COVID's kind of had it like this, and now we're slowly coming back. So we'll see where the future of the brand goes with nails. And I will keep the lipstick, but I might rebrand the lipstick slightly with the design on the tubes. So, it's anything I can do to help the elephants and the rhinos and, Humane Society International. And I'm also working with pollinators. So, with bees. So everything we can do. We're beeswax free, by the way. So
that is super exciting.
yeah.
I'd love to see all these different companies that are tying in their, the things that are near and dear to their hearts, and all the issues that we have in the world, and how can we tie our businesses into that. And there are obviously, you're finding ways that you need to consider every aspect of your business and how it affects our society and the environment. I love that.
Yeah, you have to think about supply chain, and you have to, I don't know if students understand supply chain, but where are your products coming from? What country is this ingredient coming from? How do companies I've worked for in the past for like commercially, doing retouching or photography, they would also have to think about my factories, where are these things produced, who's producing them? Is it ethical? Are they dumping dye into the water source? The denim dye. So it's just like, you have to think about everything. Like, you don't want to just grab the first thing and start marketing it. You want to think about everything that goes into it.
Yeah, it's a lot, right?
It's a lot. Yes.
Important. It is important. So, Sarah, I got one question for you, and I'm keeping an eye on the time. I think we'll only ask a couple, maybe Sarah, this will be our last one, and then I have a conclusion question for each of you. And then maybe we have enough time then for questions from the chat. We have a couple in there. Okay, Carrie, thank you. So Sarah, I'm going to tie two of them together because there are some questions about the site specific aspect of your mural painting. So how do you go about this, doing research for a site? And then how do you come up with a design concept based on, like, how does that research aspect happen? Like for instance, we showed an image that one of the murals you did in Haiti. So when you do any traveling for your murals, do you actually go and travel there and, do kind of like scouting? Like, how does that whole thing work? And then I want to tie that in to the second part of that, which is, what do you think about the future of art in community spaces?
Okay. Well, thinking about site-specific works, we'll start there. Okay, so the one in Haiti, it was a little girl who lived there. And when we went to Haiti to paint, it was part of a mural festival. I didn't know what I wanted to do, which is a little risky. I'm like, okay, I'm going here and I don't know what I'm painting. But it's because I am inspired by the space in which the mural is going to live and the people who live there and who's going to interact with it and the history and the present and the future. All of these things are really critical and into like my design process. So researching Haiti was kind of difficult because a lot of what I found was from like a mission perspective, people going to Haiti and they're on a mission trip, and that's not what I was doing, nor did I feel really inspired by that at all. So when we got there's a local artist and he was painting in the festival too, and we met his daughter and she was just like awesome. And she pulled up on a motorcycle. She was like riding on the back and comes off and she's wearing this beautiful dress. And I'm like, what? This girl is so cool. And she was, I don't know, maybe 8, and comes up and she greets me with a kiss on each cheek. And she was just so mature and had this great poise to her and was just like, excuse my language, but badass. I was like, this little girl is killing it. I was like, I want to paint you. So I asked her dad, I was like, can we paint her? And he was like, yeah. And he's showing me pictures and there's a photo of her holding up her artwork. And I was like, that's it. And our wall faced a school. So I thought, this is the main audience who's going to see, it's going to be children. So I'm like, I want something youth centric. I want something that's going to speak to the people. And this little girl is super cool. And I want to put her face on a wall. So that's what inspired that. And it was very last minute. I mean, like we got there and we could have started painting, but I'm like, I got to figure this out. I was like, I don't want to just force it. That one was kind of unique because, it was in Haiti and that was just a unique situation. If I can visit a site before, yes, I'm going to go visit it. The budget isn't always there. Sometimes I can't do that, but the internet is awesome. And you can do a lot of research that way, not just reading, but you can also like reach out to people and talk to people. So like one project I'm doing in May is in Madisonville, Tennessee, Monroe County. So it's very rural, population's like 5,000 people there. And they got a grant to fund it. So like that always is like the initial start, honestly, is like, I look at my barriers. So my barriers being, is there a specific prompt? Is there some kind of goal that needs to be met, whether it's a client or a funder or, whatever. And then I think, how can I creatively address this, right? So for the one in Tennessee, it has to celebrate the history and the natural features of Monroe County. So I'm like, okay, I can definitely do that. So I'm looking up the history, and what really stuck out to me, because I like doing my art for like social causes, right? And not correcting the world, but improving the world and empowering people and making the world a better place. So part of the history that I found inspiring was Madisonville was originally named Tellico when it was native land prior to the Indian Relocation Act in 1830. That same year, they changed it to Madisonville, named after James Madison. So I'm like, wow, that's like white colonialism at its finest, just like renaming this space. So I'm like, okay, I'm looking at the native people who live there. There's the Cherokee tribe, and I'm trying to learn more and more. I actually bought a book about Cherokee women, and I wanted to paint a Cherokee woman. So I put out on my Instagram story, Power of Social Media, I'm like, this is a project I'm doing. I would love to paint a Cherokee woman. If anyone is interested or could share this, that would be great. And like the next day I had a woman reaching out, and she is so cool. She is Cherokee and she lives in Oklahoma now, which, I mean, that makes sense because this is where a lot of the Cherokee people were relocated to. And she's a lawyer, and it was specifically Indigenous rights law that she studied. And she's just like, once again, a total badass. She does fashion. She's a comedian. I'm like, oh, this woman is awesome. I was like, I want your face on a wall, right? And something too, when I was looking at Cherokee history, it was very sad. And that is truth. That is truth that has been lived. But I wanted to know behind the sadness, like, what is your culture? What is it really about, right? I wanted something happy to celebrate, not to be dismissive of, this generational trauma that has occurred. But it made me sad to, well, first, when I Google Cherokee, first of all, Jeep Cherokee everywhere, like, once again, white colonialism at its finest. And then again, it was hard for me to find like the humanity and this culture and tradition. So I got to speak with this woman, and we had the most touching phone call, and she just, it was really beautiful how vulnerable she made herself to me. I was like, it's hard stories to tell. And I felt a lot of pain in the stories about her and her family too, but like so much resilience and strength and like beauty. And I'm like, I want to celebrate this. So, and not whitewashed either. So having those voices be heard are very important too. And being very aware of the complexities that come with me not being Native, painting this Native woman on a wall. It's, you just have to be very sensitive and really listen a lot, and uplift and empower others, and use your art to do that. It's like, I feel like I'm just like a vessel to show other people's stories. Your original question was.
Yeah, so no, thank you. That was really great. And we love hearing, these specific accounts of how you're applying these things. So that's great. The other question is maybe a little bit more challenging, and it's about what you think the future of public art might be.
Well, I think I would hope that there's more public art. I mean, art exists in like every day and everywhere around us, thinking about it more from a design point, like an artist was involved in the chair that I'm sitting at, and the clothes that I'm wearing, and the earrings I have on the desk, and, everything. So I think people are becoming more in tune with artists' voices and trusting that and like celebrating it. I've noticed like a big difference between the way art is viewed here, specifically public art in the US versus like Europe. It's much more free, and they're like, no, you're an artist. Like, that's what you do. You put it out there. I don't have a say in that. It's your voice. And I'm like, those projects are awesome when I get to do that, but they're kind of few and far. But I think people are like getting it more and more. And I think the future of public art is really going to be predicated on the future of like human connectedness and how much we trust each other and connect with each other and celebrate each other. It's very much like a human experience. So I think there's potential for it to grow, but it's going to be really dependent on like the condition, like our societal conditions in a way. And really, it will always be there. I would say if there's less trust and like support of the arts, it's still going to happen. It's just a matter of if it's sanctioned or not.
Yes, great point. Great point. Yes. Power to the artist. Okay, so we're almost out of time, and I want to make sure we get to our questions. So I have one conclusion question really quickly, and then let's see what we have in the chat, and then we can wrap up. So the last question was, if you could go back in time, back at your time at FSU, is there any advice that you would share with yourself as an undergraduate student at FSU? Tracy, what do you think?
I have a lot of thoughts about my time at FSU. A lot of nights at late night library. I don't know if you guys know that place or remember it. No, I would say that I had mentioned this before, but utilize the people you're going to school with as part of your network. Get to know, ask your instructors for, different leads on different projects or internships, stay in touch with people you go to school with. And also I would take, if I could go back in time, I would take every class I take seriously, even if it's something I'm not interested in. There are plenty of classes I took, I did not want to be there, like meteorology. Fun fact, I used to take notes for Deion Sanders back in the day because he never came to class. So yeah, like meteorology. I'm like, why am I in meteorology? But I actually really enjoyed the class once I got into it, and it inspired me in a lot of different ways. But I would really throw myself into every single class and try to learn everything I could out of every single class, because you never know where you're going to pull artistic inspiration from. And the more you know, the more inspiration you have. And I didn't really think of that at the time. And I wish I could go back and take some classes over, but yeah, that would be what I would tell myself.
Thank you, Tracy. That's great. Great advice. Sarah, how about you?
I would say it's really important to remember that you don't become an artist when you step into the classroom or your studio, and then you stop being an artist when you leave. You're an artist because of your unique perspective and the way you view the world, and you should let every facet of your world inspire you, and take every class seriously, regardless of what it is, because that's what your reality is going to be as an artist, right? You're not going to step into your studio or your office and be like, okay, it's art time. No, my best inspiration has come when I've least expected it. And it's really important to be in tune with that, and just view the world as an artist and soak it all up. I mean, at FSU, the faculty there is incredible, and it is such a unique opportunity to have that many artists gathered at one time. And your professors' input is incredibly valuable, as well as your classmates. So that's something that I really do miss, and I try and find opportunities to do, is having these like gatherings of artists. I'm like, I want to critique, right? And it's like, when am I going to do that, right? It's kind of hard. It's like, okay, guys, it's Critique Tuesdays. I've like thought about it, like if anyone's interested. So it's you just hang out and you talk about your work, and I'm like, man, that is so cool and rare, So really just bask in it, and be grateful for it, because it is such a cool opportunity.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. That's awesome. So a little bit time. Thank you for all of the answers to your questions. Those are all of our prepared questions that I'm going to ask today. We have more, so I'm hoping that the students maybe can reach out to you both if they have any individual questions. If you're okay with that, we can give them your email or something, if that's okay. But Carrie, there was something in here from the audience? Let's see.
There were a couple. What was so brilliant is the student questions were not only outstanding, but they naturally followed the conversation that Sarah and Tracy were having. So most of these have actually been touched on. There's one outstanding one, though, that I think it was tailored for Sarah, but I think might be relevant for both Tracy and Sarah as a potential kind of entrepreneur wrap-up moment, maybe. And it's, how do you, what do you do with a difficult client? Is there any tips, tricks? What do you do when someone's really ambitious or you're just not connecting? Where do you find that middle space?
I would say communicate with your client. Be realistic about what you can do and what you can do for their budget. Be realistic with yourself about what you want to do. Like I said, if a client comes to me and they're like, hey, paint my logo, and they want it painted straightforward, I'm like, okay, well, then I stop and think, okay, how long is this going to take me to do? Do I really want to do it? Like, what is this logo? What business is it for? Do I want to support that? And I'm going to be completely honest. Sometimes the price will fluctuate depending on how bad I want to do a project. If I don't care to, and I'm like, man, I want a client to, if they approve my number, I want to feel excited. I don't want to say, ugh. And I stop and think, okay, if they approve this number right now, am I going to go, oh, am I like, heck yeah, and that's how I decide my number. And obviously there are factors into how I like justify that reaction. But yeah, I've had clients where we've gone back and forth, and I can think of one especially difficult one. It was a huge historic building they wanted painted, and we were talking about a number. And I said, you know, you're going to have to get this building restored first for it to last the amount of time for me to guarantee that. And I mean, an old building that had not been touched in decades. So I'm like, it's crumbling. And I'm like, and I told her, I was like, I don't think it's wise to invest this much money on a mural on this building. Like, you need to take care of your facade first, like, and like in structural issues, which I'm like, I'm not an engineer. So, and they're like, well, just do it. And we'll get you a lift just for a week. I'm like, I need 2 weeks. It's the middle of the summer and I'm out there painting this 2-3 story building. Like, I'm sorry, I cannot do that. And you have to put your foot down sometimes. And it doesn't have to be a conflict. You know, I'm rationally telling her, like, hey, I work 8-hour days. Like, I've done the thing where I work, you know, 12, 16-hour days for a week straight to get it done because that's where the budget's at. And I don't want to do that anymore. And I know I don't have to. So it's like, that's rational. Like, what if you called I don't know, a plumber, and you're like, hey, I need that. They're like, this will take a week. And I'm like, no, I need it done in 48 hours and you need to come in and I'm going to pay you this much. They would say, no, I'm not going to do that. You know? So like, you just have to be realistic with what you want to do, what you can do. And it can be a very good and positive conversation. They might not like that you can't do something for that amount, but if you know, you crunch your numbers and you know your time and your value, and you're like, well, that's not worth it to me. It's not an argument. It's just a farewell. You know.
Right. Yeah.
And I would say, always get a contract, always have a contract, you know, make an agreement. Don't do any work without an agreement. And, you know, if they're difficult, you can always refer back to what they signed or what they agreed to. So, and depending on the state you're in, you can also, say, hey, in New York City, we have a no pay law. So if you don't get paid for a job, you can take it to this particular organization in New York, and they will go after the client and try to make them pay. I don't know what other cities have this. New York might be the only one that does it, but it has to be a New York City based client to get it done. But I would say, for working with difficult clients, just keep it professional, keep all emotion out of anything that you do. And I'd like to just reiterate what I have in the contract, what I've stated in the email, and just keep it as business-like as possible. And, you know, if they get emotional or something, you just keep the broken record technique is my favorite. You know, just do the broken record of the same. This is what we did on the agreement. And I totally agree with Sarah. Sometimes a job will come along that is not fun. I had a job in last September that I did not want to do with an art director I don't particularly like working with, but I gave them a huge number because I did not want to do it. And I was going to be in Boca that weekend with my friends, and I didn't want to do it. And so they agreed to the number, and I was like, oh, like, no, so I had to bring my laptop to Boca while everyone is like having cocktails. I'm sitting there like trying to like organize images and send them out to like, I luckily have freelancers that I outsource to sometimes. So I was like organizing and, you know, getting that all out. But yeah, you gotta, if you don't want to do it, ask for a lot of money so you're not cringing when you have to do the job, and just have a contract. So, and keep your emotions out of it. Just be business-like as possible with everything. And eventually they like will stop coming at you, and they'll be like, okay, you know, after they cool down. Usually I haven't had too many problems after, you know, when I do that.
That's really great advice. Super, super good advice. Thank you. Carrie, that was it? Was that that was our wrap-up question?
That was the only one that was kind of outstanding. There were several in the comments, but I think we touched on those.
Okay.
So, brilliant.
Great. Well, we're wrapping up right on time then. So thank you both, Tracy, Sarah. I super appreciate you both. It's great Sarah, great to see you again. Tracy, great to meet you. It's wonderful to bring you all back, kind of bring you back into the fold.
Yeah.
Let our students who are currently here at FSU get to know you, get to meet you. This is a super treat for us. So thank you so much. I really appreciate both of you being here today. And Carrie, as always, thank you.
No, thank you, Liz and Sarah and Tracy. So lovely. Thank you. So what a great conversation. It always goes too quick, Liz. We say this
It always
every time.
So for everyone who's here, all our participants, our students, Carrie's students, my students, thank you so much. People in the community, thank you for being here with us today. Thanks for bringing us some questions to ask these wonderful people. So we will have a recording of this, and for our students, if you have questions for our guests, let us know, and we'll make sure that we get those questions to them. And thank you again. Thank you for being here.
And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm totally open, you know, I'll try to help in any way I can. If you're looking to do a commercial career with illustration, photography, you know, whatever, I'll try.
Yeah, likewise. Feel free to look me up, just Sarah Painter on pretty much everything. But thank you guys so much for having us. This was a lot of fun. It's nice to meet you, Tracy.
Yes, it was wonderful to meet you as well.
All right, y'all. All right, we're gonna wrap up then. We'll close down the Zoom. Thank you all. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.